Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital Today channel. The day in Port Charles began with a tension so thick it could be cut with a knife, and no one felt it more keenly than Britt Westbourne, whose world was about to be turned upside down in ways she had never imagined. Britt, always composed and unflappable, or at least she had prided herself on appearing that way, found herself walking the sterile, cold halls of the detention center, her heels clicking softly against the polished floors, her thoughts consumed with worry for her surrogate son, Rocco Falconeri. She had received troubling reports that he had been assaulted inside the facility, his face bearing fresh, angry marks, the kind that spoke of fear and helplessness, and Britt's maternal instinct flared immediately. She felt a sharp sting in her chest as she approached his cell, the metal bars standing as a cruel barrier between them. Seeing Rocco's bruised face, Britt's lips parted in shock, and a tremor ran through her body. She whispered his name softly, barely audible over the distant clatter of guards and the low murmur of other detainees, her heart hammering as if it would burst from her chest. Her mind raced, thinking of the cruel irony that while Rocco was her surrogate son, a piece of her very soul, she was powerless in that moment, unable to protect him from the horrors of the world that seemed determined to crush innocence. She knelt beside the small chair he sat on, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead and murmuring that he was going to be okay, that she would do everything in her power to make sure no one ever hurt him again. And then, in the most unthinkable, shocking moment, Sidwell appeared, stepping from the shadows, his eyes somber, yet unyielding, as he delivered the confession that would shatter Britt's carefully constructed reality: he was her biological father. The words hit her with the force of a freight train, stealing the breath from her lungs and leaving her knees weak. Britt's vision swam, and the world tilted around her as a rush of conflicting emotions: betrayal, disbelief, anger, and an inexplicable longing for the father she had never known, flooded her senses. She couldn't speak, she couldn't move. The last thing she remembered before collapsing was Sidwell's anguished expression, a mirror of the pain she felt in her very core. And then the world went black as she fainted, falling into the embrace of a reality she was not ready to face. While Britt was grappling with this life-altering revelation, the rest of Port Charles seemed to be embroiled in its own turmoil, though intertwined with hers in ways that made the city feel like a pressure cooker of secrets, ambitions, and dangers. Drew Kane, ever the determined and sometimes impulsive figure, found himself taking a bold step that mirrored the intensity of Britt's revelation. He was down on one knee, the gleam of the engagement ring catching the harsh hospital light, and he asked Willow Tate, once again, to marry him. His voice was firm, yet tinged with a vulnerability that betrayed the underlying uncertainty of the moment. Willow, however, looked anything but certain. Her eyes betrayed a deep worry that was not just about the proposal itself but about the impossible circumstances surrounding it, her pending charges, her uncertain freedom, and the shadow of her recent actions that still hung over her like a storm cloud. Drew seemed momentarily oblivious to the complications, believing perhaps that love alone could bridge the chasm of legal and emotional turmoil, that a marriage could somehow reset the scales of justice in their favor, yet Willow's hesitation was palpable, a silent but powerful counterweight to his fervent plea. Meanwhile, in the hushed corridors of General Hospital, Michael Corinthos wrestled with questions that weighed heavily on his conscience. He approached Elizabeth Baldwin, her focus split between her patients and the ever-present chaos of the hospital, seeking guidance. Michael's concern was real and raw: should he allow Willow access to his children, Wiley and Amelia Corinthos? The memory of her erratic behavior and the trauma she had inflicted on Drew haunted him, yet he knew that Elizabeth, with her compassion and sense of fairness, would argue for Willow's maternal rights. She insisted that Willow deserved a chance, that contact with her children was not only natural but necessary for the healing of fractured family bonds. Still, Michael could not shake the image of Willow manipulating circumstances, the courtroom chaos, and her efforts to shield Daisy Corinthos from danger, all acts that simultaneously evoked awe and suspicion. In another corner of Port Charles, Liesl Albrecht was maneuvering her way through her own web of intrigue. She had arrived at Crimson Magazine, seeking to influence her niece Nina Reeves, requesting her to wield her editorial authority to effect positive change, or at least change according to Liesl's vision. The request carried layers of complexity. Liesl's intentions, as always, were a mix of genuine concern, self-interest, and strategic manipulation. Whether it was to highlight the injustice facing teenagers ensnared by criminal charges, to support Rocco, or to address some deeper, more personal agenda, remained a tantalizing mystery. Nina, ever cautious and calculating, listened intently, weighing not just the potential power of her platform but the ethical ramifications of bending it to serve someone else's cause. Elsewhere, Jen Sidwell and Ava Jerome faced their own reckoning as they confronted the bitter taste of defeat. Jens admitted, without pretense, that he was no gracious loser, and his frustration over Measure C's failure was evident. The measure, which had promised him access to Sonny Corinthos' peers, had been soundly rejected by the voters, leaving him bitter and scheming. Even more galling was the victory of Mayor Laura Collins, whose confrontation with Henry Dalton had done nothing to undermine her public standing. Jen's ignorance of the macabre fate of Dalton's body, a critical piece in his planned frame-up, only underscored the chaos and missed opportunities swirling around him. Amidst all this turmoil, Britt's visit to Rocco underscored a theme that ran through Port Charles like a current beneath the surface, the fierce, unyielding love of family and the lengths one would go to protect it. Seeing the bruises on her surrogate son's face sparked not just maternal worry but righteous anger. Conversations with Sonny Corinthos revealed that the young boy had been beaten within the detention center, igniting Sonny's protective instincts and a familiar, almost legendary, determination to shield his family from harm. Britt's warning to Rocco, that escalation could follow if provoked, reflected both her fear for him and her strategic mind, seeking to navigate the treacherous waters of juvenile detention without endangering him further. Sonny himself was taking no chances. Back at the police department, he confronted acting District Attorney Justine Turner with a blunt ultimatum, his tone carrying both menace and paternal authority. Either she ensured Rocco's swift release from the detention center, or Sonny would take matters into his own hands. His warning was layered, referencing both the immediate danger of Rocco's physical safety and the broader injustice of trumped-up charges, hinting at the shadowy power he wielded but always for the protection of those he loved. The clock was ticking, and with Thanksgiving approaching, Sonny's resolve was absolute: Rocco would be free, safe, and vindicated, no matter the obstacles. Through all of these intertwined threads, the shocking revelation of Sidwell's paternity to Britt, Drew's audacious proposal to Willow, Michael's paternal dilemmas, Liesel's manipulations at Crimson, Jen's political frustrations, and Sonny's unwavering protective drive, a portrait of Port Charles emerged that was as intricate as it was volatile. The city, with its secrets, lies, loves, and betrayals, felt alive, each heartbeat echoing the human drama unfolding within its streets and institutions. Britt's fainting at the revelation of her father's identity was not just a personal crisis but a symbolic moment, a reflection of how the past, often hidden, could crash into the present with irreversible force, demanding reckoning, adaptation, and emotional endurance. Drew's proposal to Willow, the hospital debates over custody and access, and the strategic moves at Crimson magazine highlighted the intersection of love, ambition, and morality, showing how every choice carried weight and consequence. Meanwhile, Sonny's relentless pursuit to protect Rocco reminded everyone that in a world rife with danger, loyalty and family could become both shield and sword. Each character's narrative, though distinct, contributed to a mosaic of drama, each revelation cascading into the next, building a tension so dense that it seemed as if Port Charles itself held its breath in anticipation of what would come next. And so, in the span of a single, tumultuous day, lives collided and secrets unraveled. Britt, regaining consciousness, faced the reality of Sidwell's confession, grappling with the implications for her sense of identity, her past, and her future. Drew and Willow remained caught in the uncertain limbo of love complicated by legal peril, while Michael wrestled with the balance between justice and compassion for Willow, the mother of his children. Liesel and Nina danced a cautious tango of influence and ethics, and Jens confronted the bitter taste of political and personal defeat. All the while, Sonny's warning to Justine Turner loomed as a potent reminder that some forces, particularly those driven by familial love and loyalty, could not be ignored or defied without consequence. The drama of Port Charles continued to unfold, a vivid tapestry of passion, conflict, and revelation, where every heartbeat mattered, every secret could ignite a storm, and where the lives of Britt, Drew, Willow, Sonny, Rocco, and countless others intertwined in a complex, breathtaking narrative that was as unpredictable as it was compelling. Britt slowly regained her composure, her body trembling as she processed the revelation that had nearly undone her. Sidwell's admission of being her biological father was like a thunderclap in her mind, a violent shock that unmoored her from the sense of stability she had clung to for so long. She tried to focus on Rocco, on the bruised young boy who represented the only family she had truly built with her own hands, yet even as she knelt beside him, she couldn't shake the surreal weight of her father's confession. Memories of Sidwell, both the man she had known and the stranger who had just claimed blood ties, collided violently in her mind. How could she reconcile the cold, calculating figure she had dealt with in the past with the vulnerable, penitent man who now stood before her, offering a connection she didn't know whether to accept or reject? The very notion of him being her father seemed almost absurd, a twist so outrageous that it could have been ripped from the pages of a daytime soap fantasy, but in Port Charles, the impossible was often reality. As Britt struggled to process Sidwell's words, she was also keenly aware of Rocco's plight. The young boy, though small in stature, had endured a level of cruelty that would have broken many adults. His bruises, both physical and emotional, were a testament to the indifference and violence that could fester even in institutions designed for rehabilitation. Britt's protective instincts flared, her mind racing to develop a plan. She would speak to Sonny immediately, coordinate with anyone necessary, and ensure Rocco's safety. She knew the Corinthos family's reach was formidable. Sonny's reputation as a man who protected his own, often through means that skirted legality, was a comfort, and a stark reminder of the lengths people would go to protect the ones they loved. Britt found herself oddly reassured by the knowledge that Sonny had already taken notice of Rocco's injuries and was ready to act decisively. In a strange way, the intersection of Sidwell's confession and Rocco's suffering reminded her that family was far more complicated than blood alone. Meanwhile, Drew Kane's proposal to Willow Tate continued to hang in the air like an unresolved question, the weight of legal uncertainty pressing down on them both. Willow, though visibly hesitant, tried to mask her fear with a polite smile. Her mind, however, was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On the one hand, Drew's unwavering love and commitment offered her a rare sense of stability and hope. On the other, the looming threat of her charges, coupled with the intricate web of lies and misunderstandings she had become entangled in, made any promise of a bright future seem tenuous at best. She understood Drew's intentions, she did, but she also knew that love alone could not erase the legal consequences or the societal scrutiny she faced. As Drew waited, his eyes glimmering with hope, Willow's internal struggle became almost palpable. The proposal wasn't just about love, it was about the audacity to imagine a life where mistakes, consequences, and the dark shadows of the past could somehow be reconciled with hope, forgiveness, and the promise of a future together. Back at General Hospital, Michael Corinthos wrestled with his own turbulent emotions. As a father, he understood the importance of allowing children to maintain a connection with their mother, yet the recent shooting incident weighed heavily on him. The question of whether Willow could safely have access to Wiley and Amelia was not just legal but moral. Michael's protective instincts clashed with his understanding of justice, fairness, and the potential for rehabilitation. Elizabeth Baldwin, ever the voice of reason and compassion, argued passionately that shielding children from their mother entirely could have long-term consequences for their emotional development. Michael listened, torn between duty and desire, justice and empathy. His mind wandered to moments from his own childhood, the pain of separation, the feeling of being caught in the crossfire of adult decisions, and he realized that he had the power to either perpetuate that pain or prevent it. The weight of his choice, combined with the larger chaos of Port Charles, left him feeling both empowered and unbearably burdened. Elsewhere, Liesl Albrecht maneuvered through her intricate plan with a mix of cunning and genuine concern. At Crimson Magazine, she addressed Nina Reeves with a tone that was both persuasive and commanding. She wanted Nina to use her editorial influence for what she framed as a greater good, shaping public opinion, drawing attention to injustices, and perhaps protecting vulnerable youth from the harsh judgment of the legal system. Liesl's history of manipulation and moral ambiguity, however, cast a shadow over her words. Nina, perceptive and cautious, was aware that Liesl's intentions were rarely purely altruistic. Every request carried a subtext, a hidden agenda, a potential for gain that went beyond the stated purpose. Yet, Nina also saw the value in using her platform for good. The tension between ethical responsibility and personal caution created a complex dynamic, one that mirrored the broader moral ambiguities that seemed to permeate Port Charles. Jen Sidwell's frustration reached a boiling point as he faced the bitter reality of his political defeat. Measure C's failure had not only denied him access to Sonny Corinthos' peers but also left him feeling humiliated in the public eye. The mayoral victory of Laura Collins added insult to injury, demonstrating the unpredictability of public favor and the futility of underhanded schemes. Jen's conversations with Ava Jerome revealed both his irritation and his inability to gracefully accept loss. He was a man accustomed to getting what he wanted, and the sudden collapse of his plans left him floundering. Yet, beneath his anger and scheming, there was a certain vulnerability, a fear that the meticulously constructed world he relied upon was slipping through his fingers. In the midst of these intersecting dramas, the detention center became a focal point of conflict, tension, and human vulnerability. Britt's visit to Rocco highlighted not just the immediate danger to a young life but the broader systemic failures that allowed violence and cruelty to persist. Her warnings to Rocco were tempered with a careful awareness of how to navigate authority figures, institutional rules, and the delicate balance of protecting him without escalating the situation. Sonny's involvement added an extra layer of urgency and potency. His stern warning to acting District Attorney Justine Turner emphasized both the immediacy of the threat to Rocco's safety and the broader principle of family protection. Sonny's reputation as a man who did whatever it took to safeguard those he loved was legendary, and his willingness to confront legal authorities underscored the tension between law and moral imperative in Port Charles. The complexities of these relationships, Britt's newfound familial connection, Drew's uncertain proposal, Michael's moral quandaries, Liesel's manipulations, Jen's frustrations, and Sonny's protective instincts, created a web of intrigue and tension that seemed to tighten with every passing moment. Each character's choices reverberated across the lives of others, creating consequences that were often unpredictable, sometimes devastating, and always deeply human. Britt's struggle with Sidwell's confession was emblematic of this dynamic. The revelation was not simply a personal shock, it was a catalyst, forcing her to reconsider everything she thought she knew about family, loyalty, and identity. It forced her to confront difficult questions. Could she forgive the past? Could she embrace a father she barely knew? Could she reconcile the pain he had caused with the possibility of connection and understanding? Meanwhile, Drew's proposal to Willow raised questions about timing, morality, and the nature of love itself. His willingness to proceed despite her legal uncertainties reflected both hope and perhaps a degree of naivety. Willow's hesitation was equally complex, blending fear, pragmatism, and a genuine desire to make the right choice for herself and her children. Their dynamic mirrored the broader tension in Port Charles between hope and reality, between desire and responsibility, and between the personal and the societal. The ethical and emotional dilemmas faced by Michael, Liesel, and Sonny further underscored the central theme of Port Charles, that every action has consequences, that love and loyalty often demand difficult choices, and that protecting those we care about can require navigating a labyrinth of moral and legal challenges. Michael's deliberations about Willow's access to his children highlighted the delicate balance between justice and compassion. Liesel's maneuverings at Crimson Magazine demonstrated the interplay between influence, morality, and personal gain. Sonny's unwavering determination to protect Rocco illustrated the lengths to which individuals would go to safeguard family, even when faced with legal or physical obstacles. As the day progressed, the interconnected lives of these characters continued to unfold, revealing not just individual struggles but a collective tapestry of tension, emotion, and drama. Britt's fainting at Sidwell's confession was a dramatic touchstone, a moment that encapsulated the broader themes of identity, family, and the unexpected twists that life in Port Charles seemed to deliver without warning. Drew and Willow's relationship continued to be tested by external pressures, reflecting the constant negotiation between personal desire and social reality. Michael's moral calculations revealed the complexities of parental responsibility and the sometimes painful intersection of law and love. As the evening wore on, Britt found herself pacing the small room she had been given for a private visit with Rocco, her mind still reeling from Sidwell's confession. The knowledge that the man she had once seen only as a manipulative figure was actually her father left her grappling with a cascade of emotions: anger, disbelief, curiosity, and a faint, reluctant sense of connection. She wondered what his motives had truly been all these years and whether this revelation would change anything between them, or if it was merely another twist in the unpredictable saga of her life. Yet, even amidst her turmoil, her attention always returned to Rocco, whose safety and well-being outweighed any personal shock she might feel. Every bruise, every mark on his small body, was a call to action, a reminder that love sometimes demanded immediate, decisive intervention. Meanwhile, Drew Kane's insistence on pursuing his proposal to Willow lingered over the day like a delicate, unresolved tension. Willow, torn between the desire for stability and the fear of legal repercussions, could not help but feel the weight of each decision pressing down on her. Her gaze fell on Drew's expectant face, and for a moment